Just a reminder, you can catch me recording this podcast live on AMP. AMP is a new live radio app that lets you call in and chat with me in person while recording. Get the app on Apple's App Store and make sure you follow me at John Middlekauff to get notified when I go live. Live here on AMP Thursday night, the Chicago Bears win their first game in almost a calendar year. It was getting bleak. It was getting ugly, but the Bears are finally in the win column. We will dive into that. Justin Fields, RIP Dick Butkus, and we'll also look on the Washington side. We'll also bang out some things that kind of interest me this upcoming weekend when it comes to the National Football League as well as college football. But first, subscribe to the podcast wherever you may listen. 3 and Out with me, John Middlekauff. That's my name. Also, the volume. If you're watching this on YouTube, hammer that like button. Subscribe to the page. Leave a comment below in the description. And yeah, thevolume.com. We got merch. We got hats. Go get yourself a 3 and Out Flex Fit hat. Other than that, let's talk some football. But before we do you want to attend the game? Do you want to? I was watching some of these baseball playoff games. If you live in Philadelphia and you listen to this show, you got to get to one of their playoff games. That place looks like an SEC football game. Looks incredible. And the way you need to do that is you go to your app store and you download the official ticketing app of this podcast. They go by Gametime. You can get any pair of tickets, concerts, comedy shows, any athletic event, pro or college. And when you sign up for your first pair of tickets, use the promo code JOHN, John, that's my name, $20 off. I'm giving you a deal. So go to a game, go to a concert, become a Swiftie, go check them out. Swiftie probably back at another game next Thursday because the Chiefs are playing. So she's busy, but she's going to be singing sometime soon. And if you want to go, Gametime, buy a pair of tickets, promo code JOHN. Okay, the Bears, destroy doesn't feel too strong of a word to describe what we witnessed. They took it to Washington. Washington had a couple drives, but for the most part, the Bears played their best game in a long, long time. They played a good half last week. This was a really, really good game, and they needed it. And I want to start by this because through 2 weeks, Justin Fields wasn't bad. I mean, it was an utter train wreck. He looked, it wasn't even, there was no subjective conversation. It was not arguable. He was playing the position at a really, really low level. Production-wise, eye test, the coaching staff, no one was on the same page. It was not going to work. Now, I liked him coming out a lot. Why? He has a ton of physical tools. Big, strong arm. Big, can really run. But playing quarterback, as we know, is a very nuanced position, and it had not been going well. Well, the last 2 weeks, he has 8 touchdowns. So I respect anyone in any walk of life. Times get tough. I don't give a shit who you are. Nothing is easy all the time. And in industries like Wall Street or the NFL, you're going to fail. And failing, listen, it happens to all of us, and you have to be mentally tough. And to play quarterback at the highest level in the NFL, just to sustain being a starter, I'm not talking to become Mahomes or to become Josh Allen, just to last, just to keep a starting spot, you got to be mentally tough. And especially as a younger player, to go through what he was going through, nationally, everyone shitting on you as a player, everyone talking a lot of crap about your team. Your team just internally is in shambles. You have a wide receiver sent home. You have a defensive coordinator resign. We still don't know the reason why. You hadn't won a game in basically 11 months, which they were trending toward. And I was thinking about this if they were heading into this game, thinking that, listen, there's a chance that they lose 16 games in a row. And I was thinking, if you lost 16 games in a row, which has obviously happened, teams go 0-16. I know we have 17 games now, but the 0-16 teams, I think it's much more difficult to lose 16 straight games in 2 separate seasons because you get rid of some bad players, you add some new players. You probably were not good the previous year, so you added some draft picks. So they were trending toward, it's almost impossible. It's not impossible to go winless on a season. It is very, very difficult to lose a season's worth of game separated by 2 separate seasons. And Fields refused to let that happen. He was really good. Obviously, DJ Moore was fantastic. Looks like Deebo Samuel tonight on steroids. Just carried him, dominated, taking slants and hitches and comebacks to the house, breaking tackles. But I give Justin Fields a lot of credit mentally because, listen, a lot of players in the NFL are tough, right? Obviously, there are some players tougher than others. We'll get into Dick Butkus. But mental toughness, I think in all sports at the highest level professionally really separates guys. And I think Justin Fields has really, really shown a lot these last 2 weeks. Now, is he going to be the Bears starter for the next decade? I can't go that far. Is he going to be the Bears starter in 2024? Won't go that far either. But like he's taught everyone, listen, I'm guilty too. Pump the fucking brakes, guys. Like this ain't quite over yet. I got a lot of talent here. I can make plays. I can play winning football. He played winning football last week. He obviously played winning football tonight, but we all know the physical skills. My mother can see that. The mental skills and the mental toughness side is something you can only learn by going through tough times, and that's how you're evaluated by your team, your GM, your city. And I think if you're a Bears fan today, you're really prideful in the way he reacted because – listen, as a fan of just the sport, it's definitely cool to see. And as a fan of the sport, growing up, I never saw Dick Butkus play a snap. Obviously, well before my time. I would imagine 99.9% of people listening or watching this podcast fall under that category. There's a pretty good chance it's 100%. But there is not anyone who grew up liking football that didn't know the name Dick Butkus. And I think as a football player, especially a defensive football player, like most famous people, when you say their name, like have a brand, right? Like if you say Warren Buffett, most people think like rich, famous, rich, successful financial guy, right? You say Steve Jobs, you're like innovator, right? You say Tom Brady, you're like winner. When you say Dick Butkus, I think the first thing that comes to mind is toughness. And listen, I always somewhat support older players being bitter at newer players, especially if you played, basketball, baseball, football in like the 70s or 80s. You're like, we laid it all on the line. The game was way more physical. We did not make nearly enough money. Some of those guys had second jobs and see the money being made now. You think guys are softer. When you think football and you think defensive football, Dick Butkus, the moment you start playing, whether it's peewees, whether it's high school football, whether you play through college in the NFL, that is a name that is uttered by coaches at every level. And it's someone, listen, I know I've never even been to Chicago, and I feel like I know exactly what Dick Butkus was, what he stood for. You Google him when he dies, and, obviously all the Pro Bowls, the Hall of Fame, the all-decade team, multiple decades. Really, when you think about the Bears, really the only offensive player that's really famous on the team is Walter Payton in the history of the franchise, at least for me. And it's just littered with superstar, I guess Gale Sayers as well, but littered with superstar defensive players. And he's obviously the Tom Brady, Joe Montana of that group for that franchise. So RIP Dick Butkus. To me, when I think linebackers in the NFL, I think Ray Nitschke, Dick Butkus, Jack Lambert. I mean, that is the NFL when you're a kid and you're watching some of these grainy footages of football from the late 60s or the early 70s. You're like, these guys were nuts. Blood everywhere. Just the game it wasn't safe. It wasn't safe. And a huge reason it wasn't safe is because guys like Dick Butkus were on the field. I remember hearing a scouting story. I don't know if it was on the top 100 players with Belichick or Art Rooney told the story, but they went to scout Lambert, and the field was muddy, so they had to practice on concrete, and it was supposed to be a walkthrough, and Lambert was making full speed tackles on gravel and was bleeding everywhere, and he went back to the Rooney family. He's like, we got to get this guy, and I just think that's who built the NFL. guys like that. And Dick Butkus, will always be, till the league folds one day, which doesn't seem anytime soon, one of the guys that put this league, like, built the base of it. If you laid the concrete for a home, he would have been one of, like, the founding fathers of this league, and where it's at right now with all the success, Amazon streaming, the billions of dollars, were because of guys like Dick Butkus. So RIP. The NFL season is going strong, and DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking up new customers with an offer that's even stronger. Bet $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game day this October. Get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code JOHN, J-O-H-N. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet $5 on the NFL. That's code JOHN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. And the team that got their ass kicked tonight, I was thinking about it watching, like, Ron Rivera is not going to be the coach in 2024. They have a brand new owner. Like, their team's just not good enough. Though I actually think they're kind of an intriguing job opening whenever it comes. They do have some young, talented pieces. If you're not in position to get a top quarterback, you got a guy that at least you could play a season with, who's cheap, as you figure things out. But I was thinking Josh Harris, they showed him tonight in the booth, and he obviously owns the Sixers, and their last two coaches have been Doc Rivers and now Nick Nurse, who just got fired by the Raptors, but won a championship with Kawhi Leonard and was known as, one of the better coaches before last year in all of the NBA. So their last two coaches have been big-time, bright lights guys. And I think we talk a lot about, and listen, just because Eberflus won the night, I by no means think he's some lock to be the coach in 2024. He's coaching for his job for the next 3 months. Bears fans would agree. Like, he ain't on scholarship. That's for damn sure. But there's a lot of Harbaugh, Chicago. Shouldn't Chicago try to take a big swing? Jim Harbaugh was drafted there, played there. Like, doesn't make a lot of Midwest, Big Ten country. Why wouldn't Washington be all over him? Like I just said, this owner has gone after big names in the NBA. How do you spend that much money on a team and not do it in the NFL? To think he's just going to hire, and a lot of teams do, the next offensive coordinator, the next sexy name, Ben Johnson with the Lions. I'm not saying they won't interview them, and hell, maybe they do end up hiring him. But I see this guy sniffing around. This is a brand that has fallen on very, very hard times the last 20 years. I mean, Dan Snyder obviously ruined everything surrounding the team, including the actual team. It's just been a very ugly period of time for a franchise that, if some of you that are a little older than me probably remember them in their heyday when they were competing with the Niners, the 80s Bears, the 80s Giants, right, to win Super Bowls and to be one of the best teams in the league. Well, that feels like eons ago. And I do wonder, if you're a new owner, that it's one thing, hiring a coach in football is very, very difficult, especially when you're hiring coordinators. For every Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, there are a lot of Joe Judges and Pat Shurmurs and Vance Josephs. There is no formula. It's a lot like drafting players. You do all your due diligence, you meet with the people, you feel good about it, but you never know. And you never know till it's too late, and then the guy's coaching your team and you realize he's not the guy. The easiest way to avoid that is just go big game hunting. And to me, Jim Harbaugh, when you factor in, like, even the Urban Meyers and the Lincoln Rileys, those guys never coached in the NFL. We saw Urban Meyer not even last year. Like, Lincoln Riley's name's not going to go away, but the dude is allergic to defense. Like, that ain't going to work in the NFL. Loved Mike Leach. R.I.P. I miss Mike Leach. I wish he was obviously still around coaching. He was a fun character. But, like, when you don't care about defense, you have no shot. Jim Harbaugh not only knows NFL football as a player and as a coach, defense is a huge part of his ethos, and they have some pieces in Washington. So you watch, forever it was the Dolphins were always getting linked to, God, the Dolphins are sniffing around Harbaugh or, Coach X, right? Some big name guy. They're always trying to, Tom Brady, now it feels like they got McDaniel, their team's pretty good. They've kind of mellowed out a little bit. I think the team that you're going to start seeing being circled is the Washington Commanders. Well, that might not even be their name because they might change it. But what we saw tonight, pretty lifeless effort for a large percentage of it. Definitely the first half was pretty embarrassing. And overall, to let Fields kind of kick your ass like that, you got to go back to the drawing board. But, if you believe in the football gods, if you just believe in things bigger than yourself, under no circumstances were the Chicago Bears losing on the day that Dick Butkus passed away. For a limited time, Verizon customers can get Netflix and NFL Plus for just $25 a month with Plus Play. That's $120 in annual savings. Plus Play is a platform where Verizon customers can shop, manage, and save on the subscriptions you already love, like Netflix and NFL Plus. With NFL Plus Premium, you get access to live games on mobile, NFL Red Zone, NFL Network, and more. Just go to Verizon.com/plusplay to bundle and save on Netflix and NFL Plus today for a limited time only. Okay, let's dive into a couple other things in the NFL before I get to do these teams suck? Because that's one thing I have circled. We got 4 teams on byes: the Browns, the Chargers, the Seahawks, and the Bucks. So we go through this stretch now of like 5 or 6 weeks where some weeks you're like, God, there aren't really that many games on TV. That's the one thing early on in the NFL season, like week 1, week 2. Sunday, the 10 a.m. slot and even the afternoon slot, sometimes you're like, God, feels like there's 10 games on right now. Once the bye weeks happen and then you spread out Monday night and Thursday night football, you might get an afternoon where there's like 2 games on, which listen, I'm not complaining. But let's start with one game that I think, and listen, if you've followed me for a while, my take was Mac Jones was going to be a major problem for Belichick. He was going to end the dynasty. And I know the dynasty technically ended when Brady left, but like end Belichick's career in New England. That'd be another guy. Like, if they got a little breakup, like let's just say Belichick's not the coach of New England in 2024. You don't think Josh Harris, Washington, just, hey, get the train back on the tracks? But listen, Bill Belichick is playing Derek Carr, who is obviously injured, but last week dumped the ball off at a historic fashion. The Saints, I've watched them 3 of their 4 games. Clearly they're solid, but offensively they'd have some issues. And then the moment Derek got hurt, and clearly he's not the same, and listen, he's not the most, inclined guy to just bombs away. This guy's not Patrick Mahomes in his prime. This is a game Belichick, not in a million years, would lose to a banged up Derek Carr and Dennis Allen. But if he loses this game, like to me, they're trending for a 4 or 5 win season. I don't care how good of a coach he is. I don't care how many tricks he has up his sleeve. The Patriots, and hell, even Belichick, like Mac Jones' rookie year, is winning this game. And I don't have faith. I talk about it with Stuckey from a gambling perspective. Listen, obviously you should bet on Belichick, but I don't trust it. And this is a game feels like you can't win this thing. What are we doing? And this is why I keep getting back to, if he can't win games like this and they're having back-to-back seasons where they don't really get close to making the playoffs. Last year technically would be closer than they look like they're headed this year. But what's the point of all this? Just coach to just try to get the record? As I said earlier this week, Belichick hung his hat on being a ruthless negotiator, a ruthless general manager, having like no emotion. And that's historically what makes great executives in sports, right? You got to make tough decisions. You got to trade guys who have been really, really good for you, right? Like Bill Walsh got rid of Joe Montana, got rid of Ronnie Lott, like got rid of a lot of players and kind of set the tone, and Belichick kind of copied him. Now, eventually, though, it ends. Walsh kind of tapped out after 8 or 9 seasons. Belichick's not tapping out. He doesn't have crazy emotional anxiety. Walsh got kind of overwhelmed, later regretted it, but, the stress really got to him. Belichick, not a stress guy. Not saying he doesn't get stressed, but like you're going to have to get rid of him. He's not just gonna say, hey, I've had enough. Like this ain't working. But it ain't working if you can't beat the Saints and a banged up Derek Carr. The other game that when this happened, I think it was in training camp, everyone freaked out when Sean Payton called out Nathaniel Hackett. And my take has always been, I appreciate anyone who's honest. Like, he's just saying what everyone else is saying. He's just doing it publicly, right? Like, why are some of the craziest quotes we ever read in anything, politics, business articles, obviously pro sports, anonymous? But that's how everyone actually talks. Like, everyone last year was making fun of Nathaniel Hackett. Like this week, I saw this controversy with Rodney Harrison calling Zach Wilson garbage, and everyone's like, that's crossing the line. Literally, for 3 straight weeks, everyone sitting on their couch, texting their buddies, is calling Zach Wilson garbage. Then when a guy who was a great player, Super Bowl champion, complete badass, listen, I'm not the biggest Rodney Harrison fan, but he can say whatever he wants about some player, calls him garbage, everyone's like, that's out of line. You mean the same guy that you surely was saying that sucked? Now another guy says it. It's like, well, it's too bad he's doing it publicly. Bullshit. So Sean Payton said what he believed. Now, he ran it back, but like, that's what he thought. And that's what a lot of people thought, because we all witnessed it. The dude didn't even make it through the season. But Nathaniel Hackett added Aaron Rodgers. You're like, well, Sean, you better be careful, man. You're going to play him. They're going to roll with Aaron Rodgers. That ain't the case. Sean Payton, if you are going to talk shit, which I have no problem in any business, say what you believe, just back it up, right? And sports is the one area where it's like, especially if you're a player, you say something, you got to go against the guy. Football, unlike some of these other sports, violent game. You talk shit about some pitcher, he might blast you the next time he sees you, right? In football, you say something about someone else. One, if you're a player, you can get taken out. And two, if you're a coach, you can kind of get rolled. So I'm looking at Sean Payton this week. You can't lose to Zach Wilson. That can't happen. You have to win this game. You talk shit about this guy, his coach, and you didn't even think you were going to see this player. They're coming to you. You can't lose this game. Like, talking Bill Belichick, like, technically, whatever. You lose, your team might suck. Sean Payton cannot lose this game. You cannot lose to Zach Wilson. And we'll see, like, is Zach Wilson just the version that we saw in Sunday Night Football? Is he just solid now? Did he figure something out? Or is he the guy that we saw against the Chiefs those first couple drives that didn't really have a chance? So when I look at this week, Denver better win. And let's do a little segment called Do These Guys Suck? And I'm going to start with the Giants. Obviously, this season has been an utter disaster. It has not gone well, and they're getting made fun of constantly for the contract that they gave Daniel Jones, and rightfully so. Because a year ago, they didn't pick up the guy's fifth-year option. 2 years later, he's making $40+ million, and their team feels like they're headed nowhere and nowhere fast. Here's the problem. They're 1-3. They have not played well at all. And now they're playing the Miami Dolphins in Miami. They're coming off a loss. So the one thing, the Dolphins, how are the Giants going to score? And all of a sudden you're 1-4. The negativity builds. You saw this week, one of their players is calling fans burger flippers and hot dog flippers. You actually don't flip a hot dog. You roll it. You obviously flip a burger, but you roll a hot dog, as someone who's eaten a lot of hot dogs and made a few in my day. But the Giants are in major trouble. And I would lean, and I thought they were going to be good. I was dead wrong. I didn't necessarily believe in Daniel Jones, but I thought he'd kind of be like an Alex Smith where he'd keep getting incrementally better. He's obviously getting worse. Their offensive line's in shambles. Saquon's banged up. The Giants could be headed toward a 4 or 5 win season if they keep getting rolled. Another team that I believed in. I've completely changed my tune. A lot like the Giants, I don't think the Steelers are any good. Now, this is a rivalry week. You're playing Baltimore. Lamar's humming. Tomlin's fantastic as an underdog. But you lose this game, all of a sudden, you have a 2-game swing basically with the Ravens because they only have 1 loss. You got 2. You lose this game. You got 3. They got 1. And they've beat you at your place. Not only are you in shambles, but you might just be headed toward the first time of, is this when Tomlin actually doesn't go above 500? Because if they look lifeless, they obviously got some quarterback issues right now. In one, Pickett's not playing that well. Then he got injured. I saw a quote, I think yesterday, that he said, I'll be there. Do you really want compromise Kenny Pickett? But I definitely don't want Mitch Trubisky. If Kenny Pickett's bad/injured, the Steelers are fucked. They just are, because you're not winning any games with Mitch Trubisky. So this is kind of a survival game for the Steelers. And last but not least, the Bengals. Now, obviously, their quarterback is not only compromised, physically, his calf's off, but he hasn't played well on top of that, and their whole team's off. I don't think Arizona is the best team to play when shit is just not going well. Because the one thing the Cardinals do is they play their ass off. And when you're trying to figure things out, when you guys got guys injured and you got a wide receiver who's complaining, saying he's always open, this type game, all of a sudden you look up. This happened to the Cowboys, and they didn't even have internal issues. You're down 17-10, and then that pressure starts to build. So, obviously the Giants are in major trouble against Miami. The Steelers, it's a rivalry game, but you just better win it. I think the Cincy at Arizona game is a lot more intriguing than anyone would have thought week one. Like, that's a throwaway game. Who's watching that thing? I'm keeping an eye on this because I could see Cincinnati blowing this thing from a mile away. And last but not least, one guy that I've been very critical of just over the years in college football was Steve Sarkisian. And I was listening to our guys, Snaps, T-Bob, and Aaron Murray, and T-Bob's a hater too. And again, this isn't nothing personal. I've never even met Sark. It was always simply he got these incredible jobs and he recruited his ass off, and he couldn't win 9 games. His record was like 7-5 and 8-5 all the time. It's like this guy is coaching NFL players left and right, loaded with talent, and just didn't win. So I was just like, I don't get it. And then he gets the Texas job. Yeah, some guys are really good coordinators, and you put them in a big spot, they just lose. Well, this season has gone pretty well for him. And I've said this before, but I talked to a buddy during training camp, a couple guys that had went through there from a scouting perspective. They're like, this team's stacked, man. This team is loaded. I'm like, I still don't trust him. I don't give a shit if he has the best roster in college football. I think he's more likely to go 10-2 than win the national championship. Well, he's playing Oklahoma. They're both 5-0. Obviously, Texas is a better version than this Oklahoma team. He wins this game. Texas probably going to the playoffs. I mean, they would be on easy street to you look up, and Sark in Texas is going to be right there. So I got a pretty good chance to be pretty wrong on this. I never would have picked him to be a playoff game team at the beginning of the season. I don't care how much talent. Clearly, the quarterback's playing well. Defensively, they look really good. But, Sark's a guy that, listen, I've never bet on him as a coach, but everyone I know that knows him loves him. Like, swear by the guy. You talk to some people about Lane, depends who you talk to with the information you get about Lane Kiffin. When you talk to people about Sark, they really, really like him. Like, high character guy, obviously went through some substance issues, which, he kind of pushes back on. Listen, heard different things, whatever at USC. We all go through problems, but as a coach, I just never bought it. There was a little like Lincoln Riley. There was like a soft nature to him. Not that he knew what to look for, probably even more than Lincoln in players, but his teams, it was always something missing. Well, so far this year, his teams looked excellent. I was watching a couple of weeks ago, they're playing Kansas. I'm like, this Kansas, they got a big-time coach. This guy's going to get a big-time job after this year, and the game was close. Then all of a sudden, I left to run some errands. I look back, it was like 40-10, the final score, 40-14. So maybe this is the year Sark goes to the playoffs. Hell, why couldn't he win the national championship? I bet a lot of people listening or watching have been in an accident. I bet a lot of people have been into an intense car accident. And let's face it, not knowing who to call for help is hard. Hiring Morgan & Morgan is easy because Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm with over 100 offices nationwide with more than 800 lawyers. They've recovered over $15 billion for over 300,000 clients. Morgan & Morgan has a proven track record of fighting to get you full and fair compensation. They've been fighting for the people for over 35 years. Submitting an injury claim with Morgan & Morgan is so easy. That's the key. Not having representation is hard. Fighting with Morgan & Morgan is easy. If you've ever been injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. For more information, go to forthepeople.com/John or dial pound law, pound 529 from your cell phone. That's forthepeople.com/JOHN or pound law, pound 529 from your cell phone. This is a paid advertisement. Here's my my bold take of the week, brought to you by my friends at Guinness. I was going to bring a Guinness onto the show, but I moved an old fridge today into a garage. and you put it on the dolly, and I didn't realize there were some Guinnesses in there. Then I opened it. They all fell on the ground and exploded, which disappointed me. I didn't have time to go to the store because I wanted to slam my Guinness while I made my bold take. And here's my bold take. College football is really out of whack this season in terms of dominance from teams. Teams are good, but you're watching, you're saying there's not like a Pete Carroll USC team in its prime. There's not like a Nick Saban team in its prime. Hell, the Kirby teams of the last 2 years at Georgia clearly they're not as good this year. How would they be? They've lost like 700 players in the NFL. Literally every player from the defense 2 years ago is in the NFL right now. I think 6 or 7 of them were first-round picks. I would imagine they have more than 11 on rosters from the last 2 years when you factor in fringe backups as well. So I don't care who you are. I don't care how great of a recruiter you are. And Kirby's elite. Kirby has gone to Georgia, and he didn't just live up to being a good coach. He immediately became a legend. Back-to-back national championships. Really the first Saban guy to become like a star, close. He's still got to win a bunch more to catch Nick, but, an equal of Nick, a guy that can beat Nick, a guy that can win natties, a guy that every team in the country. Now, Kirby's more suited. Kirby's not coming to USC or coaching Washington, but every big program in the South that can pay $10, $15 million, the Floridas, the Miamis, the Clemsons, the Georgias, the Alabamas, the LSUs, would line up and take Kirby Smart. Does feel like they're a little off this year, and they're starting these games slow. I don't blame them. Some of the guys on the team, and it's part of it, like, I don't know if it's the disease of me, you start feeling yourself, you start viewing, even though you didn't maybe start for the last couple teams, but you were on the team, you start viewing yourself like a champion, even though you played like 3 snaps on special teams, you don't play as hard. Hell, you might just not be as good. Like usually when you lose a Jalen Carter or a Nakobe Dean or some of these guys, there's a drop-off. Even if it might just be a year long. Like Nick Saban didn't win every 6 straight national championships, right? There's usually one on, one off. I think they're bound to get upset. We haven't seen a crazy upset in college football this year. You could say Duke against Clemson, but then it turned out Duke was pretty freaking good. They almost beat Notre Dame. This feels like you look up and you're going to see a big-time upset. Now, I could see USC losing at any moment. If Caleb were to roll an ankle, that defense, that they could get beat. But I do wonder, like Georgia, just complacency. It's hard. I don't think any team has won 3 straight national championships since like the 40s. Definitely, I don't believe it's going to happen this year. So my bold take of the week will be that Georgia loses to Kentucky. Brought to you by Guinness. Gather your friends, raise your glasses, and toast to win. Guinness Drought Stout, imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York. Please drink responsibly. Here's something every football fan should know. You can get anything you need for game day delivered with Uber Eats. Well, almost anything, because you can't get your dream running back for your fantasy team delivered with Uber Eats. But they will deliver get flapjacks, tacos, and 6-packs. Great pass protection? No. Great pizza selection? Yes. Championship defense? No. Deodorant? Yes. Turnovers? No. Turnovers, the pastry? Yes. Because that's groceries. And get those delivered with Uber Eats too. And food from your favorite restaurants. And other essentials. So this season, get anything. Well, almost anything for game day by ordering on the Uber Eats app. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Alcohol in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details.